They dragged my wife off our porch while I stood there clutching a garden hose and a half-eaten bagel, frozen in disbelief. It wasn't just that they wore tactical vests labeled neighborhood enforcement, or that one had a paintball gun, spray-painted black, strapped to his thigh. It was Emily's face that unnerved me. She wasn't scared or angry, she looked amused, like someone watching amateurs stumble through a script. "You're making the worst mistake of your lives," she said as they pulled her down the steps. That's when I noticed her thumb tap something on her watch. A second later, a dog barked 3 houses down. 2 seconds after that, a black SUV, previously unnoticed, was suddenly gone. 5 seconds later, I realized I had no idea who I was really married to. It all began 2 weeks earlier when the homeowners association that wasn't really an HOA started escalating its antics. We live in a quiet cul-de-sac where the neighborhood group is essentially one man, Harold Grayson, with a superiority complex and a cheap printer. He issues fake citations, calls pointless meetings no one attends, and insists his bylaws are county-approved, though a quick search proves otherwise. I used to ignore it, letting Harold play his petty dictator game. But then he targeted Emily. She got a final notice for unauthorized surveillance because our doorbell camera supposedly violated privacy rules. Next came a warning for exotic vegetation after she planted European boxwood instead of the standard hedge. The real kicker was the note taped to our trash can last Tuesday. "We are watching. Comply or face community action." Typed, bolded, with a smiley face emoji. Not creepy at all, right? I showed Emily, expecting her to laugh it off or maybe agree to call the police. Instead, she glanced at it and said, "All right, it's time." Then she started inspecting our garage with military precision, checking locks, assessing angles, scribbling on a notepad about line of sight and access points. When I asked what she meant by "it's time," she gave me that calm smile she uses for pushy telemarketers and brushed it off. Then came the day it all exploded. It was a Friday morning. I was watering the lawn when a battered black Suburban rolled up like it was in a low-budget action flick. 2 guys jumped out in matching HOA tactical response, uniforms, camo pants, tight black shirts, and flimsy badges dangling from lanyards. They didn't knock or announce themselves. They marched up the porch and grabbed Emily by the arms. I dropped the hose and shouted, thinking it was a prank. One turned, flashed a plastic badge, and barked, "This is official HOA business. Step back, citizen." I laughed. I actually laughed, assuming it was a joke. But Emily didn't. She turned her head and said, "They're not real cops, honey, but someone real is watching them." Then she tapped her watch, her expression sharpening not fear, but focus. They dragged her down the steps like she was part of a drill, shoved her into the Suburban, and sped off. I reached for my phone, but it buzzed before I could dial. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A calm voice said, "She's fine. Go inside and stay away from the windows. This is being handled." I tried to respond, but the line went dead. What do you do in a moment like that? I stood on the lawn, neighbors peeking through curtains, some filming. I was the last person on the block who understood what was happening, or rather, I didn't understand anything, and that terrified me. Inside, heart racing, I didn't know whether to call the real police, the FBI, or maybe a lawyer. Then I noticed a manila folder on the kitchen counter with a sticky note. "Open if things get weird." Things were beyond weird, so I opened it. Inside were maps of our block, photos of Harold and his officers, legal documents proving his HOA was fake, and a dossier on Harold's past failed sheriff campaign, a restraining order from an ex-colleague. There were handwritten notes in Emily's neat script, patrol routes, suspected hideouts, code words. At the bottom, a line read, "If taken, delay response by exactly 4 minutes. Tactical insertion in progress." My jaw dropped. I'd married Emily 7 years ago. She was warm, brilliant, ran a nonprofit for foster kids, always brought extra brownies to neighborhood potlucks. Yet this woman, now in the hands of wannabe vigilantes, had anticipated this and had an extraction plan ready. Before I could process it, an unfamiliar SUV drove past our house clean, government issue. 2 men in suits sat inside, not looking at anything. They parked 3 doors down, and the neighborhood felt different, like I'd stumbled into a chess game mid-match. That's when I knew something bigger than fake fines was unfolding, and it all started with a bogus HOA and a power-hungry man with a clip-on badge. Harold didn't speak as he closed the door on Emily, not out of cunning, But because the envelope she'd handed him shattered his reality. It wasn't just a cease and desist. It was an indictment listing charges: fraud, unlawful detention, impersonating law enforcement, illegal surveillance, data trafficking, and privacy violations he didn't even know existed. His smugness dissolved into panic. Emily watched his face shift, saying nothing more. The clock was ticking. Agents monitoring the block had him cornered, and she knew he wouldn't last the night without a desperate move. Back home, I stopped pacing as the sun set, sitting in silence, phone in hand, eyes on the porch. I felt helpless, yet a strange pride grew. I'd known Emily for years, loved her, built a life with her. But this Emily calculating, commanding, always ahead was new, and somehow, I loved her more. She'd taken on a fake police force, cracked a surveillance racket, and made Harold crumble without raising her voice. That night, Harold didn't sleep. From a surveillance van, Emily and agents watched him pace, make frantic calls, check windows, and try accessing a hidden laptop under his closet floorboards. He didn't know a sensor in the wall alerted them the moment he entered. Emily's team had set digital traps backups and recordings of every keystroke. At 2:36 a.m., he slipped out back in black, clutching a duffel bag. He didn't get far before tripping a motion sensor disguised as a lawn gnome. Agents moved in silently, shining a flashlight in his face. Emily stood behind them, playing a voice memo of him threatening her weeks ago, a call he'd forgotten, but she hadn't. They took him quietly, no sirens, just footsteps in the grass. By morning, the cul-de-sac was calm. No fake citations, no officers parading around. Emily returned at sunrise, exhausted but composed. I hugged her and said, "You did it." She whispered against my shoulder, "It's not over yet." Agents retrieved EVY Denke from Harold's HOA, hidden server with years of stolen data, financial records, social media, even smart home audio. It was chilling. Emily filed federal privacy charges, targeting not just Harold but his buyers. This was no local scheme, it was a national breach disguised as an HOA. At a neighborhood meeting, Emily explained it simply, avoiding terms like FBI, but making clear Harold had crossed unforgivable lines. She proposed a new council: voluntary, transparent, no enforcers. For the first time, people clapped at an HOA meeting. A week later, a courier delivered a sealed envelope with a hard drive and a note, in case he wasn't alone. It held footage of secret deals and offshore accounts tied to fake HOAs nationwide. Emily's eyes narrowed. This isn't one neighborhood, it's a pattern. That night, on the porch where it began, I asked why she never told me who she was. She said softly, "I wanted a life where I didn't have to be that person. But people like Harold don't let people like me retire." We sat in silence, crickets humming. The war wasn't over, but with Emily on the front lines, we had a chance.